the arrest of a popular YouTube mom known for her strict parenting style.
A Utah woman who gave online parenting advice through a once popular YouTube channel has now been arrested on suspicion of aggravated child abuse.
My son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020, I paid her to be my mentor.
A 12-year-old boy climbed out of a window. He was barefoot. He was emaciated. His wrists and ankles were wrapped in duct tape over open wounds. He had not eaten a proper meal in weeks. He knocked on a neighbor's door in Ivins, Utah, and asked for food and water. That single act of courage, a starving, injured child escaping through a window, ended one of the most disturbing cases of child abuse America had ever seen play out in public, because the woman who had done this to him was not a stranger. She was not a monster hiding in the shadows. She was his mother, and for years, millions of people had watched her on YouTube and called her their parenting inspiration. This is the Ruby Franke case. Ruby Griffiths was born in January 1982 in Utah. She grew up in a devout Latter-day Saint family, what most people know as Mormon. In college at Brigham Young University, she met Kevin Franke. They married in 2000. Over the next decade and a half, they had 6 children together. In early 2015, Ruby created a YouTube channel. She called it 8 Passengers, a reference to her family of 8. The concept was simple: a happy Mormon family in Utah documenting their daily life, homeschooling, church, holidays, chores, the normal, wholesome rhythms of a large family. By 2020, the channel had 2.5 million subscribers and over 1 billion views. 1 billion brands paid her for sponsorships. Families across America wrote in their comments that she had changed how they thought about parenting. She was warm. She was organized. She was confident. She looked like the perfect mother. But even as early as 2020, the cracks were beginning to show. That year, one of her videos showed her son, Chad, explaining that he had been banned from sleeping in his bedroom for 7 months as punishment for a prank. He had been sleeping on a beanbag, 7 months on a beanbag. As a child, viewers were disturbed. Some left comments. Others filed complaints with Child Protective Services. An online petition calling for a CPS investigation gathered thousands of signatures. Nothing happened. The videos kept coming. Ruby kept smiling. And the channel kept growing. In 2022, Ruby Franke entered into a business partnership with a woman named Jody Hildebrandt. Hildebrandt was a licensed therapist who ran an online self-improvement program called Connexions. Former clients of Hildebrandt's program described it to NBC News as cult-like, based on extreme interpretations of LDS religious principles, with an emphasis on obedience, confession, and the idea that sinful behavior invited evil spirits into a person's body. Ruby became deeply immersed in Hildebrandt's belief system. She began to see her children's normal childhood behavior, defiance, complaints, requests for food, not as ordinary childlike behavior, but as spiritual corruption, as demonic influence, as sins requiring punishment. She began keeping a diary. In one entry, dated July 10, 2023, her son's 12th birthday, she wrote about him. He slithers and sneaks around looking for opportunities when no one is watching, and then he scurries. If he wants to emulate the Savior, he needs to be 100% obedient with exactness. No wavering, no hiding. In another entry, she wrote about forcing her son to stand in the sun without shade as discipline. She wrote, "He is defiant. His demon stays in the shade." She described her son as possessed by a demon. On his birthday, she wrote about beating her children, withholding food and water from them. She described these acts not as abuse, but as spiritual correction. And while this was happening, Ruby Franke was still posting to YouTube. By the summer of 2023, two of Ruby's children, her 12-year-old son and her 9-year-old daughter, were living with Jody Hildebrandt at her home in Ivins, Utah. What was happening inside that home was something prosecutors would later describe as a concentration camp-like setting. The children were kept in separate rooms. They were denied food for extended periods. They were physically restrained. Ruby's son had been tied up with rope, leaving deep lacerations in his skin. His wounds were covered with duct tape. He was severely malnourished. His 9-year-old sister was found in a closet, alone, petrified, sitting in the dark. Hildebrandt forced the 9-year-old girl to jump into a cactus multiple times. She was made to run barefoot on dirt roads. Ruby's son was forced to work outdoors for weeks with no sun protection, developing severe sunburns. And still, the abuse continued until August 30th, 2023. That morning, Ruby's 12-year-old son made a decision. He climbed out of a window of Hildebrandt's house. He walked to a neighbor's door. He knocked. The neighbor who answered later told police. He said he needed a favor. He asked to be taken to the nearest police station. The neighbor called 911 instead. When first responders arrived, they found the boy emaciated, with open wounds on his body and duct tape around his wrists and ankles. He was taken by ambulance to the hospital, where he was treated for severe malnourishment and deep lacerations from being bound with rope. Police searched Hildebrandt's home. Inside, they found the 9-year-old girl sitting alone in that empty closet, also malnourished, also injured. Both children were hospitalized, Ruby Franke and Jody. Hildebrandt were arrested the same day when Ruby's eldest daughter, Sherry, who was 20 years old at the time and had already distanced herself from her mother and found out about the arrest, she posted to Instagram immediately. She wrote, "Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We have been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. The kids are safe, but there is a long road ahead." Years. She had been trying for years. Ruby's own sisters, Ellie Meckham, Julie Griffiths-Daru, and Bonnie Holine, all of them also family influencers, released a joint statement. They wrote, "For the past 3 years, we have remained silent regarding our sister Ruby Franke for the sake of her children. Behind the scenes, we have done anything we could to try and make sure the kids were safe. Ruby was arrested, which needed to happen. The kids are now safe, which is the #1 priority. Her own sisters had known. Her own daughter had known. CPS had received complaints. Viewers had filed reports. And for years, nothing had been enough to stop it." Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt were each charged with 6 counts of felony aggravated child abuse. In December 2023, Ruby Franke stood in court and pleaded guilty to 4 of those counts. She said 4 words: "With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty." Jody Hildebrandt pleaded guilty to 4 counts as well. On February 20th, 2024, sentencing day, Ruby Franke stood before Judge John Walton and addressed her 6 children directly. She said, "To my babies, my 6 little chicks, you are part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently waddling you to safety." She thanked the police officer who had arrested her. And then she said something that stopped the entire courtroom. She said, "The moment she handcuffed me was the moment I gained my freedom." She said her charges were just. She broke down in tears. Judge John Walton sentenced Ruby Franke to 4 consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years in prison, the maximum sentence under Utah law. The same sentence was given to Jody Hildebrandt. prosecutor Eric Clark, in his remarks to the court, used 2 words to describe what had been done to those children inside Hildebrandt's home. Concentration camp. Ruby Franke is currently incarcerated at the Utah State Prison. The earliest she can be considered for parole is 2028. The maximum she can serve is 30 years. Kevin Franke, Ruby's husband, who maintained he had no knowledge of the abuse and was cleared of any involvement, filed for divorce in November 2023. The divorce was finalized in March 2025. He received full custody of the 4 minor children. In January 2025, Shari Franke, Ruby's eldest daughter, published a memoir. She called it The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom. In it, she describes growing up in a house where the cameras were always rolling and the performance of perfection never stopped, and even when things behind the scenes were anything but perfect. And as for the YouTube channel, 8 passengers, with its 2.5 million subscribers and 1 billion views and thousands of comments calling Ruby Franke an inspiration and a role model. YouTube deleted it. Gone. What remains are the children, 6 of them, trying to heal, trying to build lives that were partially stolen from them. One of them right there on camera for the entire world to watch and somehow not see.